verse 1 of Yahweh Gimel, or third letter of John, chapter 1, verse 1. The elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Gaius means sovereign. The elder to the beloved sovereign, whom I love in truth. Beloved ones, I pray for you to do well in every way and be in health as your life is doing well. This is important. Be in health. There are people who think that if you have Yahushua, you won't get sick ever again. If it were so, why would he say, I hope you're doing well in health and everything? Also, we see apostles who got sick for a time. Even though they were healing others, they will get sick. And that is because we all go through different trials, tribulations, tests. We are still in the flesh. And it is all for a purpose. So we should pray for health, and we should also pray for the health of others, which is one of the most important things when it comes to this reality, this life. Beloved ones, I pray for you to do well in every way and be in health as your life is doing well. For I rejoiced greatly when brothers came and witnessed of the truth in you as you walk in the truth. Like we were seeing with Philemon, once again, we see it here with John. And imagine how beautiful it would be. I rejoiced greatly when brothers came and witnessed of the truth in you, to hear from others that came to believe in the truth, how good others like you guys, for instance, are doing in your walk in the truth, as we are about to see in Mexico, which will be wonderful. I have no greater joy than to hear of my children walking in truth. I have no greater joy than to hear of my children walking in truth. Look how he says elder, he talks to them as their children, because Yahushua, as the beloved one, represents the branch of David, who comes as the father, and therefore the chosen few are his children. Yahushua, because of his name, in that case, connects with Eliyahu, who came as Yahushua the Immerser. Another Yahushua, but same name. I have no greater joy than to hear of my children walking in truth, as the joy that the lads will have by seeing the 144,000 walking in truth in Mashiach. For they follow the Lamb wherever he goes, so they walk in truth. Beloved ones, you are acting trustworthily in whatever you do for the brothers and for strangers. It's important not to just act for brothers. Well, I mean, act trustworthily, but also for strangers. When a stranger needs help, that's when that love for your neighbor will be put to the test, because it is obviously easier to love the brothers than to love the strangers. So if you love the strangers, you know you're loving the brothers. And I say that once again to keep it in mind. I have seen, well, there's a lot that we see in society, and even through people of the congregation, all of that. I mean, it is key to see how people who claim to believe in Messiah act with strangers, how they talk to strangers, or how they react to something that a stranger tells them. Like, for instance, when one's in the street and somebody asks for change or something like that, there are a lot of people who don't like that, who don't even regard the person asking for help. There are people who just give them what they have left, or whatever couple coins they have, just to shut them up. Stuff like that. And we need to be careful not to be like that. We should always put ourselves in their shoes, or lack of shoes, and think what we would want, what we would hope from somebody whom we come to ask for help. So we should always put ourselves in the stranger's shoes and think that way, because if we just think in our shoes, that's when people don't care about nobody else. And that's how the world came to be as it is. So, beloved ones, you are acting trustworthily in whatever you do for the brothers and for strangers who have borne witness of your love before the assembly. If you send them forward worthily of Elohim, you shall do well, because they went out for the sake of the name, receiving not from the nations. They went out for the sake of the name, not for the sake of whatever they do now in churches, but for the sake of the name. How important the name is, that it is for his name that we do all things, even if we don't receive anything from the nations or from the people whom we talk to, because we are doing it for him and for the love we have for the neighbor. But if the neighbor doesn't love him, then he can continue his way, for we will not be one with them who reject him. Because they went out for the sake of the name, receiving not from the nations. Therefore, we ought to receive such, so that we become fellow workers for the truth. Therefore, we ought to receive such, so that we become fellow workers for the truth. I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the first among them, does not receive us. Another huge and important verse. Because I say huge because to me it is amazing to see how 2,000 years ago there were already issues of this kind. How in the congregation of those who should love one another, and obviously mainly those who are brethren, there will be people like Diotrephes. Maybe it was because of his name, he was so mean. Let me see the name, verse 9. Diotrephes, nourished by Dios, right? That's why it begins with Dios. This is important, please. And let me go back, because look at the 7. Because they went out for the sake of the name of Yahweh and the name of Yahushua, which we must confess, and it is a commandment to believe in the name of Yahushua. 1 John 3:23. Then it says, I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, which means nourished by, they write here Jove, right? Jove is Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus. Now, this is also just, this Jove is another perversion of the name Yahweh. Just like Jehovah is a perversion of the name Yahweh, so is Jove. Because remember that the name can be written like, Yah-O-U-E, right? We can write the name of the Father like that, but they took, remember that I don't want to give spoilers. So, you know how Yahweh, let me just write it a bit different just to explain what I want to explain. Same pronunciation, Yahweh. They took the A and the U, the vowels, the first two vowels, and put the vowels of Elohim. So E and O, right? They took the vowels A, U, and they put E, O. So Yeho. And then they added the vowel A for Adonai. So they mixed the vowels of Elohim with the last vowel of Adonai. So they made it Jehovah. Interestingly enough, they use one letter, the Vav, to make two sounds. So that's another key point that shows that Jehovah cannot be the name. So because the Vav is either the O or the V, but it cannot be both. I hope that's understood, but they put it like this because they just They were making sure people wouldn't pronounce Yahoo. So they made it Yeho, right? So remember those two, E-O, because this name that was found, the name of Yahweh, if you take those two same vowels, you get, well, you take the vowel U, but remember that in Latin, the U and the V were one letter and the same back in the day. So that's why the U became a V. And then you have Yov. But remember that the I became a J in the 17th century. So now you have Jove. So that's how they went from the name Yahweh to Jove. Just like some claim that Yahu, the father, which comes from Yahu Pater, came from or was perverse and became, so they basically took the vowel A and they made Jupiter. And just the point is that it is the same entity transforming the name of the Most High to turn it into a perversion that directs to him. So also look, Diotrephes, right? Nourished by Jove. Why would they say Jove if the name here is Dio? Right? Why not nourished by Dios? Because they would be telling the people that the title Dios, which is how they use in Spanish for God, refers to a false entity, a false deity, as they would say. So Diotrephes, nourished by Jove, nourished by Dios, right? You can see the Dios here, which is how they say God in Spanish. They who do not understand that Dios is Zeus, which we can see right here. Please understand this so that you see how clear it is. You see the Dios in Greek right there written, right? Dios, Dios, Dios. Root word, Zeus. So Dios is Zeus. Zeus, Jupiter or Zeus. That's why Jupiter, remember Yahu Pater, that's why they translate Jupiter as father of helps. So Jupiter, Zeus, look at this. A noun, the genitive singular masculine of Zeus is Dios. Hopefully you can see the letters here, even though it is in Greek, you see this is a dalet, I mean a delta, which is the D, right? If you make a D, well, you could make a D like a triangle. Then the I, then the O, and then the S. Dios, as they say God in Spanish. Who is that? It is Zeus. So I hope that's clear, because Yahweh is saying they went out for the sake of the name. Yet when I wanted to come in through a letter, the one who was nourished by God didn't allow me to enter, didn't receive us, right? So look how interesting that his name is connected with how evil he was. Even though he claimed to be a believer, he didn't want to receive John, the beloved of Mashiach. How can you tell one of the closest friends of Yahushua the Messiah, no, we do not want to receive your teachings here? Imagine how much leaven he had in his heart. So it says, I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, the one who was nourished by God, if he was nourished by God, therefore he was this way. I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the first among them, does not receive us. And like I said, I do believe this is an important verse, not only because of what I just mentioned and showed that Dios is Zeus, and they are both Satan. And just in case somebody just heard me saying that and didn't understand and was scared that I said that he's Satan, let me go to the book of Revelation, chapter 2, 13, 2:13. talking to the congregation of Pergamon. It says, well, to the congregation of Pergamos, right. I know your works and where you dwell, where the throne of Satan is. Where the throne of Satan is. Pergamos. So if you look for Pergamos to see what Yahweh was referring to, or Mashiach, in Pergamos or Pergamon, like I mentioned, you see the Pergamon altar. So Yahushua said, I know your works and where you dwell. Where do they dwell? In Pergamos. What was in Pergamos? The throne of Satan. So by researching what throne or temple was located in Pergamon, we can realize who is Satan. So the altar in Pergamon is a monumental construction built during the reign of the ancient Greek king. And I'll continue. If you go to the right, you see here the Pergamon altar reconstructed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, because there was a guy who took it from Pergamon and took it all the way to Germany. And that is where Hitler prepared everything that he did when he presented himself as leader. He did it there to show that he was a vessel for Zeus. So this temple was dedicated to Egyptian gods, or Elohim. And as we know, they were done since the Exodus. For those 10 plagues, God rid of them in the sense that they were shown to be false by the fact that they couldn't stop the plagues. You see how they had the serpent on the pole, which was done by Moshe, but then was used as an idol, Nehushtan, called by Chizkiyahu, and called Asclepius later on as the god of health or healing. But so, well, you can see and continue to search for more and more to see how the altar of Zeus is the one found at Pergamon, is the largest known Greek altar. So if it's the largest known Greek altar, that means that was the, and I'll use the term God, that they would worship the most, the one they would see above all other gods. And as you guys know, Zeus was seen as the father of the gods, the leader of the gods. So it is obvious, it should be obvious, that if the altar of Zeus was the largest altar and was found at Pergamon, then that is the one being referred to here. I know your works and where you dwell, Pergamon, where the throne of Satan is. So according to scripture, Satan is Zeus. And Satan, Zeus, is called also Dios, as we just saw in the concordance. So people, mainly in Spanish, of course, shouldn't call the Most High Dios, just like in English, shouldn't call Yahweh God, for it is a false entity, as well as it appears in Isaiah 65:11. So I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, he who was nourished by God, who loves to be the first among them. How interesting. That is the God in him. Loves to be the first among them. Yahushua said, he who wants to be the first shall become the last. Satan was not willing ever to become last in anything, because he loves to be the first in everything, in the sense of honor, beauty, and all of that. That's why he was the most beautiful angel, but became Satan when he fell from the favor of Yahweh. So Lucifer, Satan, Dios, Zeus, etc., he loves to be the first among all. So that's why he tried to get rid of the name of the Father and the Son, for he wants to be first. He wants to be worshipped instead of the Father and the Son. And there are a lot of people who are like this, and we should be careful, and we should be we should discern the people that we talk to, what kind of people they are through their works, because by their fruits you shall know them. Because there are people who claim to be believers like Diotrephes, but what they want is to be first among anybody who's around them. So all they want to be is teachers. They want to be the leader. So they act humble, but they're not. So we must discern that in people to see if it's true humility or false humility. If they want to lead to the Father and to do good for the good of the people, or if they want to lead to be the first among all, to be followed, to be honored, which was the case of Diotrephes. Because those people will become obstacles for people like Yahushua, for people who are actually trying to do the work. So congregations should not have Diotrephes as leaders. Congregations should not have those who are nourished by God as their leaders, for they will lead them to falsehood, to God, and to that desire of being first among all, that desire of being honored, which is the opposite of humility. So I believe this verse is very important, because if it happened 2,000 years ago with a person who walked with Mashiach and was the beloved disciple of Mashiach, how can we think that it won't happen with us? Of course it will, and in a greater way. And I took all this time, well, because of the name, which was important to show, but also because sadly I have encountered, not saying exactly like this, but people who love to be first among them. So they become an obstacle. And we should all be careful. And also not to be obstacles ourselves for whatever feeling we may have towards somebody, right? So I wrote to the assembly, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the first among them, does not receive us. How nice. So if I come, I shall call to mind his works, which he does. If I go, he's going to hear me, right? If I go, I'm not going to stay quiet. I'm going to tell him what he's doing. And that's love, even though they would not like it, because truth hurts. So if I come, I shall call to mind his works, which he does, babbling against us, babbling against us with wicked words. How interesting that Diotrephes, the nourished by God, is babbling, as in being part of Babel. His teachings, his words are confusion and wicked. How can one who claims to believe in the Most High and in Mashiach and be a teacher of many had such wicked words? So if I come, I shall call to mind his words, which he does, babbling against us with wicked words. And not satisfied with that, he himself does not receive the brothers, and forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the assembly. Imagine. So not only was he an obstacle for Yahushua and for the people to hear the true doctrine, for his sheep, I guess. And I say, I guess, in the sense that he says that he had the authority to stop Yahushua, or at least to not receive him. And it says, and not satisfied with that, not satisfied with not receiving Yahushua and speaking wicked words against them, he himself does not receive the brothers. So he wouldn't receive all the brothers, all the disciples, all the apostles. And if there was somebody who wanted to receive them, he would forbid it and put them out of the assembly. So he would kick people out of the congregation if they would hear Yahushua. That's a congregation you shouldn't be part of. Right? And it's interesting that Yahushua is not telling them, go out, run out. He's just being clear about what is going on and allowing them to make their own choices. Something which Diotrephes was not allowing them. Diotrephes was telling them, you are forbidden from communicating with Yahushua. If you want to receive the brothers, you have to come out of the assembly. You won't be part of this congregation anymore. But Yahushua is telling them, you know that Diotrephes is doing this and that. All right, know it, know what's happening. If I come by, I will tell them and tell you what is going on. So you might as well know already, so that what I tell you, you don't take it as something personal or as just me going crazy. It is what it is. So if I come, I shall call to mind his works, which he does, babbling against us with wicked words. And not satisfied with that, he himself does not receive the brothers and forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the assembly. Beloved ones, listen, beloved ones, which is important also to mention, he loves them, Yahushua. That's why he treats them this way and tells them the truth and doesn't forbid them or acts like an obstacle in any way. Like Diotrephes, he's being an obstacle for them to hear the doctrine and forbids them as if he owned them. Just like Baal, Zeus, the owner. Beloved ones, do not imitate the evil, but the good. So instead of telling them, yo, run away, which they should, not to give an order, just telling them, do not imitate the evil. So I'm telling you certain evil that is happening in your congregation by your leader, Diotrephes. So I hope you don't imitate evil, but only the good. If he does any good, imitate that. Obviously, here he's talking in general, not just Diotrephes. Beloved ones, do not imitate evil, but good. The one who is doing good is of Yahweh, but he who is doing evil has not seen Yahweh. He's saying this right after everything he said about Diotrephes. So, in other words, Yahushua is telling them, Diotrephes does not know Yahweh. He knows Dios. He knows God, but he does not know Yahweh. So be careful not to imitate him, because you will end up imitating evil. God. Do not imitate the evil, but the good. The one who is doing good is of Yahweh, but he who is doing evil has not seen Yahweh. Look how it says it in a different way. The one who is doing good is of Yahweh, because Yahweh is good. So anything that is good comes from him. So if you do good, you are of him. But he who is doing evil, since evil is an illusion when it comes to eternity, he who does evil is actually doing an illusion. That's why he who is doing evil doesn't say is of the evil one, even though we could say that, but I'm just showing the contrast in the way he said it. But he who is doing evil has not seen Yahweh. Why? Because if you have seen Yahweh, you won't do evil anymore. You will be changed by the sight, spiritual sight, which we have, which is faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. So through faith, we are able to see Yahweh. And when we are able to see Yahweh, then we become like him in the sense that we want to act as he acts, as he commands. And therefore, we won't do evil. So the one who is doing good is of Yahweh, who is good. But he who is doing evil has not seen Yahweh. So that's why he's doing evil, because he does not. Yahweh is the only way. Since he has not seen Yahweh, the good, all he knows is evil. And also is mentioning that Dios is not Yahweh. For if Dios was Yahweh, then Diotrephes would have seen Yahweh and would not act evil. Demetrius has a good witness from all. Demetrius, which means belonging to Ceres, a false deity also. In ancient Roman religion, Ceres was a goddess of agriculture, grain crops, fertility, and motherly relationships. She was originally the central deity of Rome, so-called. Okay. So pretty much she is a representation of the Queen of Heaven, one who is worshipped nowadays as Mary, for instance. So going back, oh, it said Demetrius. I forgot the other part of the name. Belonging to Ceres. So Demetrius, the one who belonged to Ceres, has a good witness from all and from the truth itself, and we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. And I had much to write, but I do not wish to write to you with pen and ink. So pretty much here, Yahushua just told them, be careful with Diotrephes. Watch out for him. He's evil. Do not imitate him. If you want to imitate somebody, imitate Demetrius, who has a good witness from all and from the truth itself. Messiah himself gives witness that Demetrius was a good servant, a good child of Yahweh. So he was a good role model to imitate. And I'm saying that just to contrast it with the previous verses. Demetrius has a good witness from all and from the truth itself. And we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. Well, obviously, it is a false entity, but since we are receiving good witness of this person, not this goddess, but the person, Demetrius, Demeter, with the Olympian goddess of the harvest and agriculture, presiding over grains and the fertility of the earth. So because of that, it connects with the harvest of the chosen few, right? The transformation, which in Christianity, due to the wrong doctrine, they say the rapture. Look how interesting. She is also called Dio. So Yahushua is pretty much making a contrast between Diotrephes and Demetrius, since they both have a name that connects with a false deity. And one is evil like that false deity. The other one rejected those works of the false deity, but in the positive would represent the harvest of the chosen. So Demetrius has a good witness from all and from the truth itself, and we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. Remember how I mentioned in Philemon that Paul represented the witness like Moshe, and Timotheus, who had Theos at the end, which is Dios, represented Eliyahu, who came out of the false doctrine, right? Now Yahushua, as the beloved one, the one who wrote this letter, represents the beloved one, David, the branch of David, the last witness like Moshe. And now Demetrius represents Eliyahu because of his name, who is also connected, which is also connected with a false deity, right? Like Timotheus, now Demetrius. But he has a good witness. So he represents the witness, Eliyahu, who came out of the false doctrine of following Dios, of following God. Remember that Yahushua the Immerser was Eliyahu, and he didn't follow, he believed in Mashiach, but didn't follow Mashiach, for he was part of a different dispensation, if we can use that word, in the sense that he was of the time of the flesh, and Mashiach came to begin the time of the spirit. That's why he was the last Adam. The first Adam was of the flesh, and from him came John the Baptist, whom Mashiach said, there was none greater than John the Baptist of those born of women, but he who is born of the spirit will be greater than John the Baptist, even if he is the smallest one in the kingdom. So the smallest in the kingdom would be greater than John the Baptist, who is the greatest in the flesh, of those of the flesh. Remember that David became friends with Yahunatan, the son of Shaul, the king. Shaul, the king, represents Lucifer, Halel. David represents the last, Michael. Yahunatan represents Eliyahu, the one who comes with the witness like Moshe, the other witness, Eliyahu. Yahunatan is Eliyahu, David is the witness like Moshe. But Yahunatan was the son of Shaul, so he had a connection with Shaul, who represents Halel. So that's why I mentioned Yahunatan is like Yahushua the Immerser, and in this case, like Demetrius. Has a good witness, but in his name has a connection to a false deity. So Demetrius has a good witness from all and from the truth itself, and we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. I had much to write, but I do not wish to write to you with pen and ink. Same thing he said in the previous letter. But I expect to see you shortly, and we shall speak face to face. Shalom Aleichem, peace to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Greet the friends by name. How important, right? When you know somebody, if you call them by the name, they feel important. They feel like you care. But when you tell them about the name of the Most High, they think he doesn't care. And I mean friends who have not come to the truth, of course. How important is to know a name? Like, let's say also you meet somebody and you forget the name a couple hours later. It is a little bit shameful to have to ask for the name again. Excuse me, what was your name? Imagine you forget it again and you have to ask for it again. What does that show? That you don't care. And you might care, but you have an issue with memory. But what will the other person feel? That you don't care because you really weren't paying that much attention the first two times that you gave them the name. So how can Yahweh feel when people don't care about his name and don't care about knowing the name? They just keep calling him however they want. So important is the name that scripture tells us, greet the friends by name. And that's how the letter ends. So we finish with all the letters of John.